when you are put in charge of other people, you have an obligation to those people. And if you go all the way back to creation, as creation progresses, it gets narrower and narrower in focus. Also, at each of these levels, things get more complicated. He goes from big general things to life, to more complicated life. And finally, it culminates in the creation of mankind. And so there's this progression of things, but as you get the creation of mankind, he gives them authority over all of creation and says, your job is to have dominion over all of this other stuff. But having dominion doesn't mean, even though he says to subdue it, it doesn't mean to grind it under your heel. Because the very first specific task that God gives to Adam is to take care of the garden. And so God says, you are to be in charge of all this, and here's how you are to be in charge. You are to be in charge by caring for it. We don't exist for the sake of the earth. I think the earth exists for our sake. But our job is to take care of the earth. And it's the same thing with our families. Men are placed at the head of their families, not so that they can, subdue and grind their families down, but so that they can care for those families and manage them in a way that serves the kingdom. Yeshua sends out apostles like Paul because this serves the purposes of the kingdom. It grows the kingdom. It adds new citizens. But Paul's apostleship wasn't given for Paul's benefit. It was given for the benefit of the people that he was going to be bringing into the kingdom. So his first obligation is to the one who sent him, the one he represents. But as part of his commission is to garden, is to care for this new garden that God is creating out of a chaotic earth. The world is chaos. It is like creation before God started imposing order on it. And God sends out his people, apostles, into the world to impose an order, not necessarily by force, but by caring for it, by evangelizing, by, in some cases, there will, of course, be force, because that's why God institutes governments, to impose order on chaos. But the most important way we do that is by restoring people to their creator. And that is Paul's commission. Paul is under obligation to Greeks and barbarians because he is Yeshua's agent among them to restore them to God. He's sent among them not to be their boss, but to be their servant, in the sense that he is caring for them and restoring them to the proper order that God wants them to be in. But in order to do that, he has to have authority over them. That seems like a catch-22, but it's really the way that all legitimate authority works. If God gives you authority over something, it's so that you can manage it and restore it into what God wants it to be.